The first thing you learn about dying for your lord is that it's very inconvenient for everyone else. The second thing is that it's cold. Cold like river stones. Cold like the steel of the short blade resting against my belly. The courtyard smells of wet earth and plum blossoms. Somewhere behind me, a junior retainer is trying not to cry. He sounds like a broken flute. I want to tell him to stop. It's supposed to be my dramatic moment, but etiquette says the condemned should be dignified and silent, so instead, I kneel white kimono. Freshly washed, no armor. No swords except the one meant to open me like a fish. Across from me sits my lord's magistrate, reading the sentence with all the passion of a man listing grocery items. Failure. Dishonor? Responsibility? Responsibility? That's a polite way of saying someone important died and I didn't. My name hardly matters now. By sunset, I'll be the samurai who did the right thing. History loves tidy labels. My fingers brush the hilt. I've gutted men in mud, snow, and burning fields. But doing it to yourself? That requires a special kind of loyalty. Or stupidity. I'm still deciding which funny thing is. While he drones on about honor, all I can think about is my first wooden sword. The memory hits me so hard I almost laugh. Because this isn't where my story began. It began with a 6-year-old boy getting smacked in the head with a stick. Was born the third son of a minor retainer in Owari province, which is a poetic way of saying too low to matter. Too high to farm. My father served a local daimyo, whose castle leaked when it rained and whose treasury was emptier than a monk's wine jar. But we had one thing, a name. And in our world, a name was heavier than armor. You are samurai, my father said, the day he shoved a bakken into my hands. Which means you don't get to complain. That was my entire childhood philosophy. Neatly summarized, training started before sunrise. Sword drills until my arms shook running hills with sandbags. Archery until my fingers bled through the gloves. If I cried, my instructor hit me. If I didn't cry, he hit me anyway. Good, he'd say. Pain means you're alive. I once asked when training would get easier. He stared at me like I'd asked when the sun would stop rising. War doesn't get easier, he said. Why should you? Fair point. Breakfast was rice so thin you could see the bottom of the bowl. We called it ghost rice. Mostly water, haunted by the memory of food. By 10, I could shoot from horseback. By 12, I could disassemble a spear faster than most men could count coins. By 13, I had my first real blade. I slept with it. Next to my futon, like other boys slept with toys. Nothing. Says healthy childhood like cuddling a weapon. The Sengoku. Jidai didn't care about birthdays. It cared about territory. Castles changed hands more often than gambling debts. Lords betrayed each other weekly. Alliances lasted about as long as a drunk promise. If you weren't fighting, you were preparing to fight. If you weren't preparing, you were already dead. Our daimyo swore loyalty to Oda Nobunaga. Yes, that Nobunaga. The one who collected enemies like other men collected teacups, which meant we got dragged into every conflict. Then 100 R. My first battle wasn't glorious. No slow motion charges. No heroic speeches. Just mud. So much mud it sucked at our sandals and swallowed. Arrows like it was hungry. I remember thinking this is war. This is just slipping and screaming. The Ashigari peasants broke. They always did. One arrow volley, and half of them ran like someone yelled free sake. I don't blame them. Then the enemy line hit us up close. Combat is just panic with sharp objects. I stabbed a man in the throat because he tripped toward me, not skill. Gravity did most of the work. He stared at me like he wanted to ask a question, then drowned on his own blood. I waited for thunder. For the heavens to judge me, nothing, just more mud. That's when I learned the truth. Killing isn't dramatic. It's paperwork for survival. Afterward, I vomited behind a tree while an older samurai patted my back. Congratulations, he said. You're not useless anymore. High praise, years blurred. Sieges, skirmishes, escorts, bandits 1 week. Rival clans the next. We marched so much my feet developed permanent. Blisters shaped like the provinces of Japan. Learn the politics to smile at. Superiors bow deeper than you feel. Never trust a man who says peace talks. It always write a death poem in your head. Just in case, I became a shadow to my lord carrying messages, guarding his chambers. Standing behind him during negotiations like a decorative threat, I watched men twice my rank sweat while pretending to be calm. Samurai weren't fearless. We were just very good actors. Once, during a truce feast, an enemy captain complimented my armor. "Beautiful lacquer," he said 2 weeks later. I killed him at dawn. I remember thinking, should I thank him for noticing the craftsmanship? War makes you weird. By 25, I had scars like a map. Shoulder, thigh, rib. Each one a story. I didn't want to tell, but my lord trusted me, promoted me, gave me a small stipend. A better horse even allowed me to wear 2 swords openly in the castle. I felt 10 feet tall, which is precisely when fate decided to laugh, because loyalty, I learned, doesn't protect you. It just gives you front row seats when everything collapses. The campaign that ruined me started like all the others. Orders at dawn, armor on, rice, stuffed into a pouch. Quick. Suppression, they said. Bandits, they said. Whenever someone says, quick pack extra bandages, we marched into the hills and straight into an ambush. Not bandits, rival clans. Veterans.arquebuses. Real soldiers. The first volley sounded like the sky cracking. Men I'd known. Since childhood dropped like puppets with cut. String smoke screams horses losing their minds, and somewhere in that chaos, my lord fell, and I was still alive. Which, as I now kneel in this quiet courtyard with a blade against my stomach, turns out to be my greatest crime. Smoke always smells sweet after gunpowder. That's what I remember most. Not the screams. Not the blood. Sweetness like roasted chestnuts at a winter festival, which is deeply unfair. Because nothing about that day deserved to smell pleasant. The arquebus volley tore through us. Before we even saw their banners, men dropped mid-step. One moment talking about lunch, the next moment missing half a face. War has terrible timing. My lord's horse reared, screaming louder than any human. I tried to reach him, but the slope turned to chaos mode. Bodies, broken spears. Protect the lord. Someone shouted. Everyone shouted that. No one actually could. Another volley cracked, the air filled with white smoke. You couldn't see 5 paces. It was like fighting inside a boiling kettle. Then I saw him, my lord Takada-sama, on the ground, pinned. Under his horse, alive, cursing, which honestly was comforting. Dead men are quiet. Angry daimyo are predictable. I cut the saddle straps and dragged him free while arrows thudded around us like heavy rain. Retreat. He barked. Of course he said retreat. Generals always discover caution after half. Their army is gone. We tried to pull back. But the enemy. Infantry was already on us. Steel men. Steel. The neat lines dissolved into a brawl. At some point, I stopped being a samurai and became an animal. Stabbed, slashed, elbowed, bit once. I'm not proud of that last one. But the man was very close, and I panicked. Bushido manuals never mention biting. They should. It works. I stayed near Takadi-sama, cutting down anyone who got close. Twice, I took hits meant for him. My shoulder still clicks when it rains. For a moment, I thought we might break through. Then came the third volley. A single shot. One crack. Not loud. Not dramatic, just final. He jerked like someone. Yanked a string tied to his spine, I remember. Thinking he'd stumbled. Then I saw the hole in his chest small, neat, ridiculous. That something so tiny could end a man who commanded thousands. He looked surprised. Like he'd just remembered he left the Stove on. He tried to speak. Blood came out instead. I caught him as he fell, and for a second, everything slowed. No noise. No battle. Just his weight in my arms. You live, he whispered, which felt less like a blessing and more like a curse. Then he died, just like that. No music. No poetry history always makes death sound elegant. In reality, it's messy and smells like iron. We lost, obviously, when your lord dies. The rest of the battle is mostly paperwork. Survivors limped home. Half our banners missing. Armor dented. Cracked. Burned. We looked less like warriors and more like a group of extremely disappointed farmers. At the castle, the wailing started before we even crossed the gate. Servants, wives, children, grief spreads faster than fire. I delivered. His swords personally, his eldest son wouldn't meet my eyes. That should have been my warning. See, in theory, I'd done everything right. Protected him, fought nearly, died twice. But war isn't judged by effort. It's judged by outcomes.